BC? Who would have brought it? Jaredites. Ohio. Next one. This is where you find it. Of course, the biggest area is the state of Michigan because of the Michigan tablets. We find it a little bit in Wisconsin, a little bit in Illinois, a little bit in Ohio. We also find it in Utah in 2 places by St. George and Kanab. It's also behind the Manti Temple in the rocks. This exact symbol. Interesting. Now, what's up here? This is really neat. Around 1890s, the Archaeological Society of Canada went out to a place called Monhegan Island near the mouth of the St. Lawrence Seaway, and there's a great stone raised up there. And on this stone are these symbols pounded out so that anybody coming into the St. Lawrence Seaway can see that stone and see this symbol. What it is a billboard. It's a sign telling other people coming by boat, this is where we are. This is where you turn in. This is a map. Come down this waterway and you're going to find your people. This is where we are. A billboard found by the Canadians, Monhegan Island, 1896. Next one. East Star Man. I'm not going to read this. This comes out of the book by L. Taylor Hanson, published in the 1950s. He walked the Americas. This gal, L. Taylor, she went around North America, Central America, and South America, gathering up Indian legends about the Great White Prophet. And they're pretty much all the same. But in North America, we call him East Star Man. Came down from the sky from an easterly direction, shining bright and white. And this is one the Indians talk about. He ended blood sacrifice. He brought them new laws. He also reestablished a new priesthood amongst the Indians. And they talk about it. East Star Man. It's all through this book. When L. Taylor Hanson finished doing her work, she converted and was baptized to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 1950s. Fantastic story. She, by the way, is from Amherst, Wisconsin, but she's gone. I never had a chance to meet her. Next one. This is very interesting. Focus, please. Everybody has seen this, yes? The Anthon transcript. This is the copy. It's nothing new. Right over here, from the Anthon transcript, we find these characters that are on the transcript. In the 1700s, Jesuit missionaries going into present-day northern New York, Vermont, Maine, and Canada, teaching Catholicism to the Micmac Indians. The Micmac already had a written language, and they realized it was a form of Egyptian called Hieratic. The Copts used it, ancient Coptic Egyptians. And over here in that written language, look at the letters. 17 letters, almost an exact match off the Anthon transcript. And they still use this today. If they speak and write Micmac today, this is what you will see in their books. Look at the closeness. This is author Haynes, 1888, a guy that saw a lot of Hebraisms in linguistics amongst the Native Americans. He went out and did a lot of work on this. How many people here been to the temple before the change in 1979? Raise your hands high. I want to see them. Okay, you people are going to understand what's on this piece of paper. Those of you who were not, who went out after 79 when the change came in the third part of the ceremony, 3 times over the head, you know what I'm talking about? The change was made to English. It was the Adamic tongue that we said. Look at the words up here for God. This is Algonquin, ale. Look at the words for to pray. Pele. Want to pray to God? Pele ale. Are we on the same page here? Give me a nod. Yes? Algonquin, Great Lakes Indians. This is still their language today. The Adamic tongue mixed in their language. Now, Ether 1020. This is a good one. They built the great city by the narrow neck of land, by the place where the sea divides the land. Now, for Central America, where, oh where, does the sea divide the land? Give me a place. Can't do it. The land divides the sea. It's opposite. But if you go to the Great Lakes, because Cumorah has to be close to the narrow neck, you will find there are several candidates where the sea divides the land. Let's take a look. Here's the neck. This is, again, this Niagara, this is an Algonquin word. Thunderwater because of the majesty of the falls, but more realistic, historians have concluded that the word denotes the neck, referring to Niagara Peninsula, which was the stronghold of the Neuter nation before the Senecas liquidated that peace-loving people. Go to the next one, please. Okay, here's a map of the Great Lakes area. Focus. All right, Hill Cumorah is right about here. My candidate for the neck is this, but the narrow neck and the narrow pass can also be possibly two separate places. I think this may be the pass down here. There are several candidates. This could be a neck, that could be a neck, this could be a neck, that could be a neck. Now you're saying, where does the sea divide the land? The sea divides the land of the Niagara River. The water flows from Lake Erie northward into Lake Ontario. You say, well, Brother May, these are lakes. These aren't seas. I'm going to say, well, wait a minute. Where do the Israelites come from? Palestine. Did they not call Galilee a sea? Yes, a Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee, if you placed it on Lake Ontario, would only fit 1/10 the size. So if they saw this body of water, they're going to call this a sea also. And this is the sea, and this is where the place where the sea divides the land. And here's Hill Cumorah, and this is the neck. This is my candidate for the neck. It has to be close. Let's take a look at Joseph. Did Joseph leave us any clues? Next one. Alma 50 and 8. The land of Nephi did run in a straight course from the East Sea to the west. My choice for the East Sea is Lake Ontario and possibly even Lake Erie being with it. But at least Lake Ontario for sure. Now the land of Nephi does not run in a north and south direction. It runs in a long horizontal stretch. Its north and south is relatively narrow, but east to west, it's long. It runs in a straight course from the East Sea to the west. Let's take a look. Zion's Camp March, Joseph Smith. When he left Kirtland, Ohio, he got to the bank of Illinois and then eventually to the Mississippi River, and he wrote his wife Emma a letter. This was written in 1834, signed by Joseph. It's found in his personal papers. Let's take a look. We arrived this morning on the banks of the Mississippi. We left the eastern part of the state of Ohio, the whole of our journey in the midst of so large a company of social, honest, sincere men wandering over the plains of the Nephites, recounting occasionally the history of the Book of Mormon, roving over the mounds of that once beloved people of the Lord, picking up their skulls and bones as proof of its divine authenticity, and gazing upon a country of fertility and splendor and goodness so indescribable. Joseph Smith, Jr., letter to Emma, June 4, 1834. It's published in his personal writings, put out by Deseret Book in 1984. How many people here have never seen this before? Let me see your hands. Hold them high. Does this surprise you? This is our prophet going across the plains of the Nephites, walking across their mounds. Next one. This is in Joseph's own journal. This talks about the Zelf Mound incident. I hope you know something about this. We're going to tell you right now. During our travels, we visited several of the mounds which had been thrown up by the ancient inhabitants of this country, Nephites and Lamanites, etc. That's Joseph's own pen. On the top of the mound were stones which presented the appearance of three altars, having been erected one above the other, according to the ancient order. And the remains of bones were strewn over the surface of the ground. The brethren procured a shovel and a hoe, and removing the earth to the depth of about a foot, discovered the skeleton of a man almost entire, and between his ribs the stone point of a Lamanitish arrow, which evidently produced his death. Elder Burr Riggs retained the arrow. The contemplation of the scenery around us produced peculiar sensations in our bosoms, and subsequently the visions of the past being opened to my understanding by the Spirit of the Almighty. What's Joseph having right here? Revelation. You all agree? Okay. I discovered that the person whose skeleton was before us was a white Lamanite, a large, thick-set man, and a man of God. His name was Zelf. He was a warrior and a chieftain under the great prophet Onondagas, who was known from the Hill Cumorah, or Eastern Sea. We got a location now. Hill Cumorah, or Eastern Sea, which is what? Lake Ontario, because that's where it sits. Okay? To the Rocky Mountains. There's our western border. He was killed in a battle by the arrow found among his ribs during the last great struggle of Lamanites and Nephites. History of the Church, 1834, 1948 edition. Now, there's some things here that are very key we need to discuss. Number one, Spirit of the Almighty. This was a revelation to Joseph. This has been attacked by those who do not support North America by saying that Joseph, this was merely his opinion. This was Joseph's opinion. But that's not what it says. By the Spirit of the Almighty. And then down here, a key word, onondagas. We find words, if you find words anciently that match a place name presently, you need to stop and take notice. Of the Seneca nation, there are 5 and sometimes 6 main tribes referred to. One of the tribes is called Onondaga. And here we have a prophet named Onondagas. That's close enough. In the book of Alma, when the downtrodden and those that were of poor stature and poor means were criticized for being members of the church, they met the prophet Alma on what hill? Someone said it. Nice. Oneida. They met on the hill Oneida. Today, every 7 years in the state of New York, not more than 50 miles from the hill Cumorah, on the reservation of the Seneca Nation, they meet and discuss the law of their nation on a hill. Guess what that hill is called? Oneida. They also have a tribe of that same grouping where the Onondaga people appear, a tribe of Indians called Oneida. Oneida's name means keepers of the stone. Okay? And this 1834 edition, now go to the next one. We're going to talk about this 1834 edition. This is the same quote here. But what's important, I want you to focus, is on the bottom right here, this footnote. History of the Church, 1948 edition, volume 2, page 79 through 80. Through error, the part of this quotation naming the hill Cumorah and specifying that Zelph died in the last great struggle was omitted in editions prior to 1948. It was omitted. It was, however, quoted correctly as written by the prophet and here given in volume 6 of the Times and Seasons of January 1st, 1846. So if you've got a history of the church and it's before 1948 edition, scrap it. Go get a new one. But it's got to be a 1948 edition. You're not getting the whole story if you've got this set before 48. These are key things to identify North America. Next one. A statement by Joseph Smith in a letter dated January 4, 1833 to a newspaper editor of Rochester, New York. The Book of Mormon is a record of the forefathers of our western tribes of Indians and is published History of the Church, Volume 1, 315, teaching the prophet Joseph Smith. However, that's all we read. Joseph sent a second letter because he was very upset when he saw this. And he said to the editor of the newspaper, to N.E. Seaton, Rochester, "Dear Sir, I was somewhat disappointed on receiving my paper with only a part of my letter inserted in it. The letter which I wrote to you for publication, I wrote by the commandment of God, and I am quite anxious to have it all laid before the public, for it is of importance to them." History of the Church. Well, imagine that. He sends this, a letter, but he only publishes this much. Let's take a look at what wasn't published. Next one. This is the letter. If you have the book, Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, it's on page 17. You can go home and read it for yourself. I've shortened up, I've taken some stuff out, but I got the basic stuff here. The Book of Mormon is a record of the forefathers of our western tribes of Indians. Now let's stop right there. As soon as you say western tribes of Indians, we are not talking about the Plains Indians of North America. In Joseph's day of 1830, the Appalachian Mountains, anything across that, that is west. All the tribes are now being displaced to reservations during Joseph's day. And that's the Algonquin and the Iroquois nations. That's who he's referring to when he says western tribes of Indians. It's the Indians of the East who now have been displaced in a westward direction. Let's go on. Having been found among the ministrations of Holy Angel and translated to our own language by the gift and power of God, after having been hid up in the earth for the last 1400 years, containing the word of God which was delivered unto them. By it we learned that our western tribes of Indians, who are they? Algonquin and Iroquois, of Indians, are descendants from that Joseph who was sold into Egypt, and that the land of America, now this is key, It doesn't say Americas. It doesn't say Central America, South America, North. It says America. It's where he lives, the land of